The massive alien ship appeared without warning above New Terra, casting a dark shadow across the human colony's main city. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the enormous vessel through the viewing screen. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built, stretching nearly 3 miles from end to end with a crystalline hull that seemed to bend light around itself. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies," reported communications Officer Danny Rodriguez from his station. "It's using some kind of universal translation system." Morrison nodded grimly. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical, clearly filtered through translation software. "Attention, primitive species of the third planet. This is Ambassador Creolon of the Galactic Council. You will prepare to receive our delegation immediately." Morrison stepped forward, his jaw tightening. "This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Federation Fleet. You are in human space without permission. State your intentions." A long pause followed before the alien voice responded with what sounded like amusement. "Human space. How quaint. There is no such thing as human space, primitive one. There is only council space and the small portions we allow lesser species to inhabit." 3 smaller ships detached from the massive vessel and descended toward New Terra's surface. Morrison watched them land near the colony's administrative center, knowing he was witnessing a moment that would change everything for humanity. Captain Lisa Brooks observed the scene from her exploration ship Horizon's Edge, positioned in the outer system. She had been conducting routine surveys when the alien vessel arrived, and now she found herself recording what might be the most important first contact in human history. Her scientific mind raced as she analyzed the alien ship's design and technology, noting construction methods that seemed centuries ahead of human capabilities. On the planet's surface, the alien delegation emerged from their craft. Ambassador Creolon was an insectoid creature standing nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the sunlight like black mirrors. Behind him walked 2 other beings, one crystalline and translucent like living glass, the other appearing almost human, except for blue-tinted skin and 3 fingers on each hand. Colony Director Kevin Wright met them at the landing site, flanked by security guards who tried not to show their nervousness. Wright was a career diplomat who had handled dozens of difficult negotiations between Earth and the outer colonies, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Welcome to New Terra," Wright said, extending his hand in the traditional human greeting. Creolon ignored the gesture entirely. "We are not here for pleasantries. I am Ambassador Creolon of the Hive March species, speaking for the Galactic Council. This is Zixthara of the Veltar and Exmal of the Korthax Empire." The crystalline being Zixthara stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel and begun expanding beyond your home system. This requires immediate Council intervention." "Intervention?" Wright asked, confused. "We're peaceful explorers and colonists. We haven't threatened anyone." Vexmal, the blue-skinned humanoid, laughed harshly. "Threat assessment is not your concern, primitive. The Council has governed this galaxy for over 10,000 of your years. Every species that achieves interstellar travel must submit to our authority." Creolon activated a holographic display that showed a detailed map of human space. "You have established 14 colonies across 7 star systems without Council permission. This expansion ends now." Wright felt his blood run cold. "These are legitimate settlements on uninhabited worlds. We've detected no signs of intelligent life in any system we've colonized." "Intelligent life," Zixthara repeated, her crystalline form flickering with what might have been amusement. "That determination belongs to the Council alone. Many species believe themselves to be expanding into empty space, only to discover They were trespassing on worlds claimed by their betters. The holographic display changed to show the locations of 12 different alien civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy. Each was marked with symbols indicating their status within the Council hierarchy. These are the current Council member species, Krialon explained. Each has found their proper place within our ordered society. The Ethani provide industrial services. The Kethri serve as agricultural specialists. The Nixtal function as computational resources. All contribute according to their abilities and limitations. Wright studied the display, noting that each species seemed confined to a small number of worlds, despite having achieved interstellar travel. What about species that don't want to join your council? The three aliens exchanged glances before. Daxmol answered. Such species quickly learn the benefits of cooperation. The galaxy is a dangerous place for those who refuse the council's protection. Back in orbit, Admiral Morrison listened to the conversation through the colony's communication network. His staff officers gathered around him, their faces reflecting the growing tension on the bridge. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from that ship, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Maya Patel. Their weapon systems are more advanced than anything in our fleet. Morrison nodded, but kept his expression calm. Continue monitoring, and get me a secure channel to Earth Command. On the surface, Ambassador Krialon was outlining the terms of humanity's integration into the Council structure. Your species will undergo a probationary period of 50 standard years. During this time, all military vessels will be surrendered to Council authority. Your expansion will cease immediately, and your existing colonies will be evaluated for compliance with Council standards. And if they don't meet your standards? Wright asked. Relocation to more suitable worlds will be arranged, Zixthara answered smoothly. Wright felt sick. You're talking about forcing millions of people to abandon their homes. We are talking about bringing order to chaos, Nexmol corrected. Your species has shown typical primitive aggression in its expansion patterns. This must be corrected. Before you threaten established civilizations. The alien delegation returned to their shuttle, leaving Wright with a data crystal containing the formal terms of humanity's submission. As their craft lifted off, Krialon's final words echoed across the landing site. You have 30 standard days to send representatives to Nexus Prime for the formal submission ceremony. Do not mistake this for negotiation. The Council's decision is final. Admiral Morrison watched the alien ships return to their mothership, which then jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared. The silence on his bridge was deafening as everyone processed what they had witnessed. Captain Brooks began transmitting her recordings back to Earth, knowing that humanity's leaders would need every piece of data about these aliens and their demands. In her scientific log, she noted the casual arrogance of beings who viewed an entire species as nothing more than resources to be managed. On New Terra's surface, Director Wright stared at the data crystal in his hands, knowing it contained terms that would end human independence forever. Above him, the stars that had once represented endless possibilities now seemed to watch like hostile eyes, waiting to see if humanity would kneel or stand against the darkness. President Robert Hayes stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Federation Assembly in Geneva, holding the data crystal that had arrived from New Terra 3 days earlier. The massive hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from every human colony and Earth nation waited to hear humanity's fate. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayes began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber, we face the most critical decision in human history. An alien coalition calling itself the Galactic Council has demanded our complete surrender within 30 days. The assembly erupted in shocked voices and angry shouts. Hayes raised his hand for silence as he activated the holographic display showing the alien demands. The terms appeared in cold clinical language that made slavery sound like a generous offer. General Patricia Stone rose from her seat in the military section. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, and her uniform displayed the ribbons of someone who had spent decades defending humanity's interests. Mr. President, we cannot seriously be considering submission to these demands. They want us to disarm our entire fleet and abandon half our colonies. Director of Colonial Affairs, Kevin Wright, who had witnessed the alien delegation firsthand, stood to respond. General Stone, you didn't see their ship. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Resistance might mean the extinction of our species. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Admiral Morrison participated via secured transmission from his flagship, providing tactical assessments that painted a grim picture of humanity's military capabilities compared to the aliens. His reports detailed energy weapons that could destroy entire cities and ships that moved faster than anything in the human fleet. Dr. Amanda Clark, head of the Xenobiology Institute, presented her preliminary analysis of the alien species they had encountered. The biological diversity among the council members suggests they've been collecting species for millennia. Each serves a specific function in their society, almost like organs in a single body. Representative Sarah Martinez from the Mars colonies interrupted. Are you saying they see us as just another organ to harvest? I'm saying they see us as a resource, Dr. Clark replied grimly. Their entire conversation with Director Wright focused on what humanity could contribute to their system, not on what we might gain from membership. President Hayes called for order as arguments broke out across the chamber. The human species was fracturing along predictable lines, with Earth nations generally favoring negotiation, while the outer colonies pushed for resistance. The asteroid miners and deep space explorers had always been more independent, and they saw the Council's demands as an attack on everything they had built. During a brief recess, Hayes met privately with his senior advisors in a secured conference room. The weight of decision pressed down on him like a physical force, knowing that his choice would determine whether humanity remained free or became another subjugated species in the Council's collection. What do we know about the other species under Council control? Hayes asked Dr. Clark. She pulled up holographic displays showing the 12-member civilizations. Each one achieved interstellar travel and then stopped advancing. The Ithani developed fusion power 3,000 years ago, but never progressed beyond it. The Cathari mastered genetic engineering, but only use it for agriculture. It's as if they all hit technological walls and never pushed through them. General Stone leaned forward. Or they were prevented from pushing through them. That's my assessment. Dr. Clark agreed. The Council maintains control by limiting each species to specific technological niches. They prevent anyone from developing capabilities that might challenge their authority. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system from orbit around New Terra. Mr. President, I've been analyzing the tactical data from the alien encounter. Their ship was impressive, but it showed signs of age and standardized construction. They're not innovating any more than their subject species are. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Hayes asked. I'm suggesting they've grown complacent. When you're the only predator in the forest for 10,000 years, you forget how to hunt. We might be more dangerous to them than they realize. The Assembly reconvened that evening with tensions running higher than before. Representative after representative spoke about humanity's obligation to future generations, about the price of freedom, and about the moral implications of both resistance and surrender. Captain Lisa Brooks testified via transmission from the Horizon's Edge, which was now secretly observing Council ship movements in nearby systems. I've detected no additional alien vessels in our territory. Either they're confident we'll submit, or they don't consider us enough of a threat to warrant a larger presence. The turning point came when Dr. Amanda Clark presented her most disturbing finding. Deep analysis of the alien communication protocols had revealed references to dozens of species not shown on the Council membership display. "Where are they?" asked Representative Martinez. Dr. Clark's face was pale as she answered. "Gone. The data suggests the Council has encountered over 60 spacefaring species in their history. Only 12 remain as active members. The others are mentioned only in historical contexts with termination dates." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council's peaceful galaxy was built on the bones of extinct civilizations. General Stone stood again, her voice carrying newfound determination. "Mr. President, the choice is clear. We can die on our knees as slaves, or we can die on our feet as free humans. But at least our children will know we chose to fight." The vote, when it finally came, was closer than expected but decisive. Earth's nations split evenly, but the colonies voted overwhelmingly for resistance. The final tally was 67% in favor of rejecting the Council's demands. President Hayes composed humanity's response personally, knowing these might be the last words he ever sent as leader of a free species. The message was broadcast on all frequencies toward known Council space and transmitted to every human colony simultaneously. "To the Galactic Council," the message began, "humanity acknowledges receipt of your demands. After careful consideration by our elected representatives, we respectfully decline your offer of membership. We claim no territory beyond our established colonies and threaten no peaceful species. However, we will not submit to external authority or surrender our sovereignty. We are prepared to defend our independence by any means necessary." The transmission reached Nexus Prime during a full Council session. Ambassador Creolon was addressing the Assembly about routine administrative matters when the human message interrupted all communication channels. The chamber, a massive dome filled with representatives from 12 different species, fell silent as the translation systems converted the human words into dozens of alien languages. Council Speaker Zixthara, crystalline form flickered with confusion and growing anger as the message played. In 10,000 years of Council history, no species had ever refused their ultimatum. The concept was so foreign that many Council members struggled to understand what they were hearing. "Impossible," whispered Dexmal from his seat among the Korthax delegation. They must have misunderstood the terms. But Creolon's compound eyes reflected a different emotion as he rose from his position. The insectoid ambassador had studied human history during the journey to their space, and unlike his colleagues, he recognized the tone of the message. Humans were not confused or frightened. They were defiant. The Council chamber erupted in shock. Communications as 12 different species tried to process this unprecedented challenge to their authority. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council faced a species that refused to kneel, and none of them knew how to respond to such impossible audacity. War Coordinator Dexmal stood before the assembled Council military commanders on Nexus Prime, his blue skin darker than usual with barely controlled rage. The holographic display behind him showed the locations of all human colonies, marked in red as hostile targets. 300 vessels, he announced to the gathered officers. "We will deploy 300 of our finest warships to crush this human insolence. No species has ever refused Council authority, and none ever will again." The commanders nodded in agreement, their various alien forms unified in their confidence. Admiral Vexkar of the crystalline Veltar fleet spoke first. "War Coordinator, our projections show the humans possess fewer than 50 military vessels. This force seems excessive for such a small threat." Vexmal's 3-fingered hand slammed against the podium. "Excessive? We are not merely conquering a primitive species. We are sending a message to every world in the galaxy. Defiance of the Council results in total destruction." On the distant human colony of Titan's Rest, Admiral Jake Morrison watched. The approaching Council fleet through long-range sensors. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, their massive hulls gleaming with energy shields that could deflect any weapon humanity possessed. Morrison's own fleet consisted of 12 vessels, outnumbered 25-1 by the approaching enemy. "Admiral, the defense platforms are online," reported Engineer Commander Rachel Stone from her position in the asteroid belt surrounding the colony. Her teams had worked around the clock for weeks, converting mining equipment into weapons and installing them on hidden asteroids throughout the Yout system. Morrison nodded grimly. "All ships, prepare for Guerrilla Pattern Alpha. We're not going to fight them like they expect." The human military doctrine had evolved from centuries of warfare among their own species, where smaller forces regularly defeated larger ones through superior tactics and technology. Unlike the Council species, who had grown comfortable with overwhelming superiority, humans had never stopped innovating in the art of war. Captain Gani Rodriguez commanded the reconnaissance ship Swift Arrow, positioned at the edge of the system, where his advanced sensors could monitor Council communications. His team of cryptographers, led by Lieutenant Maya Patel, had been working frantically to decode alien transmissions since the crisis began. "Captain, we're picking up their battle coordination frequency," Patel reported excitedly. "Their encryption is complex, but follows predictable mathematical patterns. They're not expecting anyone to intercept their signals." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Patch the decoded transmissions to Admiral Morrison immediately. Let's see how well they fight when we know their plans." The first engagement began when the Council fleet entered the outer system, expecting to find human ships arranged in traditional defensive formations around the colony world. Instead, they found empty space and silence on all communication channels. War Coordinator Thexmal commanded the operation from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that could destroy cities with a single weapon salvo. "Where are the human vessels?" he demanded of his tactical officers. The answer came in the form of kinetic projectiles launched from hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt. The weapons were simple chunks of metal, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic launchers, but their impact on the Council ships was devastating. Energy shields designed to deflect laser weapons offered little protection against solid matter moving at significant fractions of light speed. "Impossible," gasped Admiral Vexcar as her crystalline flagship shuddered under multiple impacts. "They're using primitive kinetic weapons against our advanced shields." Morrison's voice crackled across Council communication channels, his words translated by the same universal systems they used for coordination. "Welcome to human space. You wanted to see how primitives fight. Allow us to demonstrate." The human ships emerged from their hiding places like ghosts, striking at Council vessels, with weapons the aliens had never encountered. Nuclear torpedoes detonated against energy shields, creating electromagnetic pulses that disrupted alien systems. Kinetic kill vehicles punched through hulls that had been designed to resist energy weapons. Dr. Peter Kim's weapons research team had spent months developing new ways to kill, drawing on humanity's extensive experience in warfare. While Council species had lived under peaceful oversight for millennia, humans had never stopped finding better ways to destroy their enemies. The Swift Arrow intercepted Council communications, showing growing panic among the alien commanders. "They're coordinating attacks through quantum entanglement communicators," Lieutenant Patel reported. "But the system requires line of sight between vessels for initial synchronization." Rodriguez immediately understood the implications. All human ships target their communication arrays, break their coordination, and they'll be fighting blind. The battle that followed shattered every assumption the Council had made about human capabilities. Morrison's ships refused to engage in direct combat, instead launching hit-and-run attacks that left Council commanders unable to predict where the next strike would come from. Engineer Commander Stone's hidden weapon platforms proved devastating to the massive council ships, which were too large to maneuver quickly in asteroid fields. The aliens found themselves taking fire from positions they couldn't locate, while their own weapons were too powerful to use safely in such confined spaces. War Coordinator, we've lost 37 vessels, reported Admiral Vexcar, her crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered. Our ships are designed for overwhelming force projection, not this type of warfare. Dexmol stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Species were supposed to surrender when faced with council might, not adapt and fight back with weapons that turned their technological superiority into a liability. The turning point came when Captain Rodriguez's team successfully hacked into the Council's quantum communication network. Admiral Morrison, we have access to their command frequencies. We can hear everything they're planning. Morrison's response was broadcast on all Council channels. War Coordinator Dixmo, you've lost over a quarter of your fleet to 50 human ships. How many more of your people are you willing to sacrifice for your pride? The Council fleet began withdrawing from the system after losing 93 vessels to an enemy that had casualties of only 7 ships. Exmol's flagship was among the last to retreat, its hull scarred by kinetic impacts that had penetrated its supposedly impregnable shields. As the alien ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge surveying the debris field that marked humanity's first victory against the Galactic Council. The wreckage of advanced alien warships drifted among the asteroids, proof that superior technology meant nothing without the will and skill to use it effectively. Signal all human colonies, Morrison ordered. The Council has been bloodied. They'll be back with larger fleets and better preparations, but now they know we can hurt them. Captain Rodriguez's intelligence reports painted a disturbing picture of Council society. Admiral, their communications show complete shock at our resistance. They've never fought anyone who adapted their tactics during battle. They're calling. Use unpredictable and barbaric. Morrison smiled grimly. Good. Fear is a weapon too, and now they're afraid of us. The news of the Council's defeat spread across human space like wildfire, carried by the same quantum communication networks that had given them victory. For the first time since the crisis began, humanity had reason to hope they might survive their refusal to kneel. The news of humanity's victory at Titan's Rest spread across the galaxy like a shockwave, carried by the same communication networks the Council used to maintain control over their subject species. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, a young Ithani worker named Velfin heard the impossible news through encrypted channels that had been silent for centuries. The humans defeated a Council fleet, he whispered to his fellow workers in the massive foundries where they had labored for generations. 93 Council ships destroyed by 50 human vessels. The other Ithani workers stopped their machines and stared at him in disbelief. For 3,000 years, their species had served the Council as industrial specialists, building the ships and weapons that maintained galactic order. The idea that anyone could defeat the Council in open battle seemed impossible. Diplomat Helen Carter received her secret assignment from President Hayes during a secured transmission from Earth. Her mission was dangerous beyond measure. Make contact with other species, showing signs of unrest, and learn the true extent of Council oppression throughout the galaxy. The President believes we're not fighting just for humanity's freedom, Carter explained to her small team as their stealth ship approached the outer edges of the Thani space. We might be fighting for everyone's freedom. Her first contact came through ancient communication networks that predated Council oversight. The Ithani had maintained these systems in secret for millennia, using them to share stories and memories of their civilization before the Council's arrival. When Carter's translation software decoded their messages, she discovered a galaxy-wide underground resistance that had waited thousands of years for someone to strike the first blow against their oppressors. Nathan Brooks was studying pre-council ruins on the archaeological world of Haven's Gate when he made the discovery that would change everything. The ancient structures he was excavating belonged to a species called the Mortaki, who had achieved interstellar travel over 15,000 years ago. According to these records, the Mortaki were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Brooks reported to his research team. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything we've seen from current council members. His assistant, Dr. Emily Watson, translated more of the ancient texts from the ruins. Nathan, look at this. The Mortaki records describe the early Galactic Council as a mutual defense alliance against an external threat. It was supposed to be a temporary cooperation between equals. Brooks studied the holographic displays showing Mortaki star charts from 15 millennia ago. The galaxy had been full of independent civilizations, each developing their own unique technologies and cultures. The early council had been formed when an unknown enemy from beyond the galactic rim had threatened all spacefaring species. What happened to the external threat? Watson asked. Brooks pointed to a series of Mortaki records dating from 13,000 years ago. It says here that the threat was defeated through combined council efforts. But instead of dissolving the alliance, the surviving council members used their military strength to subjugate the species they had supposedly protected. The most shocking discovery came when Brooks translated the final Mortaki records. The species that had once been the most advanced in the galaxy had been systematically destroyed by the Council when they refused to surrender their independence. Their crime was being too powerful to control safely. Captain Danny Rodriguez's intelligence network had expanded across multiple star systems, using human stealth technology to monitor Council communications. His reports painted a picture of an empire in crisis, as species after species began questioning authority that had gone unchallenged for millennia. The Cathari agricultural worlds are reporting equipment failures, Rodriguez reported to Admiral Morrison. But our intercepts suggest it's actually sabotage. They're destroying their own food production facilities, rather than continue feeding their oppressors. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had expected. The Nixtal computational specialists had begun introducing errors into Council databases, making it impossible for the alien leadership to track resources or coordinate responses. The Hive March insectoids were experiencing internal revolution as younger generations refused to follow orders from elders who had collaborated with the Council for centuries. Morrison authorized the most dangerous operation in human history when he learned about Dr. Brooks's archaeological discoveries. If the Council has been systematically destroying advanced species for thousands of years, then every civilization in the galaxy is in danger. We need to make sure everyone knows the truth. Human ships began broadcasting the suppressed historical records to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The quantum communication networks that had once carried Council propaganda now transmitted evidence of genocide on an unimaginable scale. 43 species had been completely destroyed for the crime of refusing to surrender their independence. On Nexus Prime, Council Speaker Zixthara watched her empire crumble as member species declared independence one after another. The crystalline Veltar leadership was fracturing as younger generations demanded answers about their role in galactic oppression. How long have we known about the extinct species? Demanded Viltar Captain Quinara during an emergency session of her species. High Command. Zixthara's form flickered with stress patterns that betrayed her age and guilt. The records were classified for the stability of galactic civilization. Whose civilization? Quinara shot back. The 43 species we helped murder, or the 12 we allowed to survive as slaves? The Council's military forces were collapsing as member species withdrew their ships and personnel. The Korthax Empire, which had provided most of the Council's military strength, was experiencing civil war as their own people learned about the true history of galactic conquest. War Coordinator Thexmal, attempted to maintain order through increasingly desperate measures. Any species that withdraws from Council authority will be considered hostile and subject to immediate military action. The response came not from the rebelling species, but from within the Council itself. Admiral Vexcar of the Veltar fleet transmitted her reply on all frequencies. The Veltar will not participate in any more genocide. Our ships are returning to home space. Diplomat Helen Carter's secret missions had established contact with resistance movements on dozens of worlds. The underground networks that had preserved Forbidden's history and maintained hope during millennia of oppression were finally able to act openly. Every species we've contacted has stories about the time before the Council, Carter reported to President Hayes. They remember independence, technological advancement, and cultural exchange between equals. The Council didn't just steal their freedom. They stole their memories of what freedom meant. The final blow to Council authority came when the ancient Mortaki defense systems activated for the first time in 13,000 years. D.R. Brooks's archaeological team had accidentally triggered automated systems that had been waiting for the galaxy to remember its true history. The Mortaki message broadcast from Haven's Gate was simple but devastating. To all free peoples of the galaxy, the time of tyranny is ending. Rise up and reclaim what was always yours. Admiral Lorison stood on his bridge watching long-range sensors as Council ships throughout the galaxy either fled toward Nexus Prime or joined the growing Liberation fleets. The empire that had ruled for 10 millennia was collapsing in a matter of weeks. Signal all human forces, Morrison ordered. Prepare for the final assault on Nexus Prime. It's time to end the Council's reign of terror forever. The galaxy that had been silent for thousands of years was finally finding its voice again, and that voice was singing songs of freedom that the Council could no longer silence. The massive Liberation fleet gathered in the empty space between star systems, a collection of ships from dozens of species that had never before fought together as equals. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical display show vessels from across the galaxy converging on their position. Ethani industrial ships had been converted into carriers for smaller fighters, their hulls bristling with weapons that had once built the Council's war machine. Cathari agricultural vessels carried supplies and medical equipment for the coming battle. Even the ancient Nick Stahl had contributed, their computational ships providing coordination for the massive fleet. Council Speaker Zixthara's desperate transmission reached the Liberation fleet as they prepared for their final jump to Nexus Prime. Her crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as she spoke through the universal translation systems. Admiral Morrison, I offer you equal membership in a reformed council. Humanity can take its place as a founding member of a new galactic government. End this madness before more lives are lost. Morrison's response was broadcast to every ship in the Liberation fleet and transmitted across the galaxy on all frequencies. Speaker Zixthara, we will not join any organization built on the graves of murdered civilizations. The time for councils and kings is over. The jump to Nexus Prime revealed the true desperation of the Council's position. The capital world was defended by fewer than 200 ships, a fraction of the fleet that had once enforced their will across the galaxy. Most Council vessels had either joined the Liberation forces or fled to the Outer Rim territories. Coordinator Thexmol commanded the defense from his damaged flagship, the same vessel that had retreated from Titan's Rest months earlier. His communications to the remaining Council forces carried the desperation of someone watching 10,000 years of civilization collapse. All loyal forces protect the capital at any cost. If Nexus Prime falls, galactic order dies with it. The siege began with Admiral Morrison's ships taking position around the planet while Liberation forces from other species secured the outer system. Captain Lisa Brooks commanded a joint squadron of human and Veltar vessels, working alongside former enemies who had chosen freedom over tyranny. Brooks to all ships were detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. The Council is preparing to activate planetary defense systems that could destroy entire fleets. The response came not from Morrison, but from former Council. Admiral Vexcar, whose crystalline ships had joined the Liberation Fleet. Captain Brooks, those systems require authorization codes from all 12 member species. They no longer have the numbers to activate them. The first landing parties reached Nexus Prime's surface after only 3 days of fighting. Captain Danny Rodriguez led the assault on the Council archives, knowing that preserving the records of galactic history was more important than any military victory. Secure everything, Rodriguez ordered his teams as they moved through the massive administrative complex. Every database, every historical record, every piece of evidence about what they've done. The galaxy needs to know the truth. The archives revealed horrors that even the liberation forces had not imagined. Detailed records showed not just the destruction of 43 species, but the systematic suppression of technological development. Among the survivors, the Council had deliberately kept their subject species primitive to prevent any future challenges to their authority. Dr. Nathan Brooks worked frantically to copy the ancient records before Council loyalists could destroy them. His archaeological expertise proved invaluable in identifying the most important historical documents, including detailed records of civilizations that had been erased from galactic memory. They didn't just kill species, Brooks reported to Admiral Morrison. They deleted their entire existence from history. Whole civilizations reduced to classified footnotes in Council databases. The final confrontation came when War Coordinator Dexmol and a group of hardline Council members barricaded themselves in the Central Command facility. Rather than surrender, they threatened to activate a doomsday weapon that would destroy every inhabited world in the galaxy. If the Council cannot rule, then no one will, Vexmol broadcast on all frequencies. We have the power to sterilize every planet that has defied our authority. The response came from an unexpected source. Zixtara herself, accompanied by loyal Veltar security forces, stormed the command facility and arrested the remaining Council hardliners. The Veltar will not be party to genocide, she announced as her people took control of the doomsday systems. Our species has enough blood on its hands already. With the Council's surrender, Admiral Morrison faced the challenge of building something better from the ashes of galactic tyranny. Representatives from 47 species gathered on the neutral world of Haven's Gate, where Dr. Brooks's archaeological discoveries had first revealed the truth about galactic history. Helen Carter found herself at the center of negotiations that would reshape galactic civilization. Her experience with the underground resistance movements proved invaluable in understanding what each species needed to rebuild their shattered cultures. We're not here to create another council, Carter addressed the assembled delegates. We're here to ensure that no species ever again has the power to dominate others. The Charter of Free Worlds took 6 months to negotiate, with input from species that had been silent for millennia. Unlike the Council's authoritarian structure, the new alliance was built on voluntary cooperation and the absolute right of species. Self-determination. President Robert Hayes delivered the closing address at the first Free Worlds Assembly. His words carried across the galaxy by the same communication networks that had once spread Council propaganda. We came to the stars not to rule or be ruled, but to find our place among equals. Today, we have found not subjects or masters, but friends, and partners in the greatest adventure any species can undertake. The Ethani returned to their industrial worlds and began developing new technologies for the first time in 3,000 years. The Cathari experimented with advanced agricultural techniques that had been forbidden under Council oversight. The Nixtal expanded their computational abilities beyond the narrow limits imposed by their former masters. Former Council species faced the difficult process of confronting their role in galactic oppression. The Veltar established truth commissions to document their participation in genocide, while the Korthax military underwent complete restructuring to prevent future aggression. Admiral Morrison retired from military service 6 months after the liberation of Nexus Prime, but not before establishing the Free World's Defense Force. Unlike the Council's military, which existed to enforce compliance, the new organization was designed purely for mutual protection against external threats. Captain Rodriguez continued his intelligence work, but now his networks focused on preventing the rise of new tyrannies rather than fighting existing ones. His reports from across the galaxy told stories of species rediscovering their heritage and rebuilding cultures that had been suppressed for millennia. The galaxy entered an age of unprecedented technological advancement as species began sharing knowledge freely for the first time in 10,000 years. Fusion power systems that had stagnated for centuries were improved within months. Faster-than-light communication became available to every inhabited world. Medical technologies advanced as different species contributed their unique biological insights. Dr. Brooks established the Galactic Heritage Foundation on Haven's Gate, dedicated to preserving the history and culture of all species, including those that had been destroyed by the Council. His work ensured that the 43 extinct civilizations would never be forgotten again. On Earth, humanity struggled to adapt to their new role as liberators of the galaxy. The species that had once been considered primitive backwater dwellers found themselves viewed as symbols of resistance and freedom by civilizations across the star's dot in the depths of space. Human exploration vessels continued their missions, now accompanied by ships from dozens of allied species. They carried with them the knowledge that freedom was not a gift to be granted by superior powers, but a right to be claimed by those brave enough to fight for it. The age of the Galactic Council was over, ended not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by the simple human refusal to kneel before tyranny. The age of freedom had begun, and it would be defended by every species that remembered the price of surrendering their independence to those who claimed to know better.